Hi everybody, it's Sarah Cray with Let's Make Art, and welcome to our Watercolor Wednesday project.
Ah!
I was not just crying, I just choked on my coffee, and that is how our Monday is going.
It's one of those Mondays.
Okay, so what we're doing today, and I don't have an example yet here for you because I wanted to talk through my process, but basically the other day we painted this scene, snowed in, right? Which we let the white of the paper do a lot of the work for us when creating this scene. And then while I was teaching it, I was like, this would actually be really beautiful as a night scene. And so then there were some comments like, yes, do a night scene. So that's what we're going to do today. Now, when it comes to taking a painting and turning it into a night scene, I just want to talk through my process with you guys. So I want to keep my composition the same. So we'll walk through sketching and all of that kind of stuff. But the thing that's really going to change here is the sky, obviously. Instead of doing this light kind of blue gray wash, I'm going to be doing more of an indigo, navy, that kind of color wash. The other thing that I'm going to think about is even in the not even in, but at nighttime, the snow is not going to be as white as it is in the daytime. So I will be doing washes on the roof and the ground using a light value of blue or something like that to indicate that the world is dark. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
It's actually kind of similar to a painting I did years ago in my journal, kind of like this. The other thing I need to think about are the values of the trees. If I want the values or the trees to be obvious, then I need to make sure they're a darker value than the sky. And then I need to make a decision. Do I want it to be snowing? I will be flicking paint for some stars. So those are the kinds of things I have to think about when I'm taking a scene and turning it into a different time of day. Basically, how is the light affecting all of the different components within my painting? The other thing that's going to be a bit more obvious is probably the light through the windows. And I will be painting the house itself a darker color. I'm going to do brown instead of red to give it more of a winter feel instead of a Christmas feel.
Okay.
But you guys are free to choose whatever house color you want. Okay?
Sounds great.
All right, let's do our oath, and then we will get to painting. So if everybody could raise their right hands and repeat after me.
Wait a second. Kim, that's you. Out there in Llama Land.
Kim,
Raise your hand.
raise your hand.
Someone named Kim's like, what?
Put your hand up.
All right.
Thanks, Kim. And repeat after me. I promise to be kind to
I
myself.
promise to be kind to myself.
I promise not to compare my work.
I promise not to compare my work.
And I promise to have fun.
And I promise to have fun.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay. I have my palette handy here. I'll be listing everything that I'll use in the description. We're going to start with taking a pencil and just kind of sketching the composition. The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of put in my line of snow for my house. Again, you guys can decide where your snow line resides depending on how comfortable you are painting buildings, okay? And for me, I'm going to keep mine basic, so that snow is going to be covering up most of my house. And then I'm going to be painting a triangle for the side of the house. Okay? We're drawing a triangle. And then we're going to do a rhombus this side, which is basically a rectangle that's just like shifted.
Push the top over, kind of.
Yeah. And the biggest thing you want to keep in mind is that this angle of the roof line should match the back angle of the roof line. So if this is the angle that I have here, I just take my pencil, I line it up to the back, and that should be a very similar angle to the back edge of the roof line because the perspective would be similar, okay? And then if like that goes pretty far off the page, so maybe I don't want it that long, so then I would just bring that line in, but still following and honoring that same angle. Okay. And then the house itself is going to be within the roof line. Roofs usually go out of the house, like off of this walls. They usually are not like this. They're not like this.
All right.
It's like this. Okay. Same thing on this side. And then let's try and get this to a better point. This side would have a little lip of the roof as well.
I don't know what that lip is called, but the under part of that lip is called a soffit.
Oh.
I only know that because we had to replace ours on our garage.
So there's a little house. Let's do some windows. And then again, think about the angles that we have here. The window panes or the lines or tops of the windows would match the same angle of the roof line here. So this is basically horizontally straight. So I can just kind of put those in. Maybe that. Do I like that? Where's the door?
On the backside.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Where do I want this door to be? Hmm. The hard thing is I don't want to erase too much because sometimes erasing too much on your watercolor paper can kind of like make a mark
Like
on.
phrase the paper a little
Yeah, a
bit.
little
Yeah.
bit. I mean, you have to be erasing pretty aggressively, but still.
Cute.
Okay.
All
Yeah.
right.
And then we'll do we want them at the same height?
Yes.
Yes, I do.
Yes.
Okay. So there is my roof. Boop, 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 boop. And then for the trees, I'm just going to kind of put in lines for the trunks. Try and stagger them, which I'm like trying to do right now, and it's kind of tricky. Um, the next thing that you want to think about is we're going to put in our sky. I'm not going to have it go edge to edge, but you're welcome to have it paint edge to edge. Um, and then I need to think about the chimney. Let's do a chimney here, actually. Cute little guy. Right there. And I'm going to have smoke coming up into the sky. And if you want to do like a foreground tree, you can, but that's good. That's it. That's all I need to do for sketching. Okay.
Okay.
Now, when it comes to sketching, I don't want you to approach sketching as if your drawing has to be perfect and then you're just like coloring it in. I utilize sketching or drawing as a guide. And so even if the line I put down for my sketch is not perfectly straight, then when I go to paint, I can adjust that. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So you can make adjustments as you're painting. All right, now for the night sky, I'm going to go with indigo, maybe some phthalo, and maybe also some lamp black. Okay. Now when I go to paint the sky, I'm going to avoid the house. Boop, boop. I'm using a long round 10 here. Wait, is that what you are? Yes. And then I'm kind of letting the edges of my sky be unfinished. And what I mean by that is you can see I'm not painting all the way to the edge. The trickiest thing is getting around this old chimney. Boop, boop, boop. Let's pick up some more paint. And we can also be like wet on wet, loose with our sky, okay? Boop. So before, when we did the last project, it was really the trees that were kind of defining the house for us. And this one, it's the sky. The sky is really doing a lot of work of defining where the edges of our house goes. Try and bring it in a little bit if you can. Boop, boop. And then you're going to check to see if things are straight. We will also have our trees to help us too, so don't stress. I'm also okay with like bleeds and hard edges, all of that kind of stuff, textures. It's not the end of of the world if that happens. Okay?
Okay.
And then I'm just gonna boop boop. And sometimes I like to use like a lighter wash along the edges of this sky here, of like a uneven edge. Why? I don't know. Feels better to me. Okay. Okay, that looks really good. We're gonna let that dry before we do anything else. Let's actually define our snow on the ground a little bit, okay?
Okay.
So I'm gonna take indigo and I'm gonna mix water with it to create kind of a light or a medium value. I'm gonna start at the base here and I'm just going to kind of swoop in this color. I'm gonna be careful not to touch this really dark blue with the water that I'm painting into the snow because I don't want that dark blue to go. I mean, you can because that would actually create a really cool texture. But if you're trying to keep in line with this is the dark sky and this is the snow, even though the snow is not going to be as white as the daytime version, it should still be a lighter value than the sky. And then you can do like an extra little swoop. And then if you want it to look like there's a little hill here, then between this section, you would do this kind of thing. So now it looks like one hill, two hills. You see that?
Mm-hmm.
Then I'm going to bring this up to the edge carefully.
Risky. Oh yeah, nice.
I was
Those are
feeling edgy and it paid off.
edgy, nice. No pun intended.
Okay, now I'm just kind of adjusting my edges here. Okay. There is that. Now I'm going to paint my roof. Again, thinking about how the snow would still have a color on the roof. So I'm just taking that same value. And I'm going to be even more careful with my edges here. Another thing you can do is just do it when your sky is dry.
Just be patient for 10 minutes.
Yeah, just like be a little bit patient. Okay. And I'm not sure if I liked that little hill thing. I think I need to have it kind of go up more this way, which I will do, but I'm going to do that with bleed proof white. I think the fact that this hill is reading completely horizontal straight is messing with my eye line of, is that a hill or is that like a snow drift or not? You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to leave that for a second. Let's let this dry and then we'll paint our house. For my house, I'm going to do dark brown. And so a really easy way to mix dark brown is basically to mix orange and black. So I'm going to get Q burnt orange here.
Uh-uh.
There we go.
Nice save.
Q burnt orange and lamp black. Together, that's going to make a pretty decent brown. You can also mix complementary colors, colors that are just across from each other on the color wheel. So red and green, yellow and purple, blue and orange.
I have a question about the paint fleck that just happened on your paper.
Yeah.
So when that happens on a fresh white piece of paper,
Mm-hmm.
the paper is like has no paint absorbed into it at all.
Mm-hmm.
And let's say you have 5 seconds to get it off before it stains. If you've done a wash and the paper's absorbed and dried a little bit of paint, does it like not absorb the next one as well? Do you have longer before you can get the dot off? Or about the same, probably.
It's about the same.
Okay.
But you just need to like pick it up quickly. I will say, that's a good question. If the dot happens on sorry, my voice. If the dot happens on a white piece of paper, you can use water to lift it up. If a dot happens on a wash, you cannot use water to lift it up because if you try and use water to lift it up, it will lift up the wash underneath and create a bloom.
Okay.
Okay, so that's how you approach them differently.
Okay.
Okay, good question.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so I'm going to actually do the windows really quick. So I'm just going to I have cad yellow, you can use Q gold, you can use whatever kind of yellow, orange color that you have. Let's actually switch to a smaller brush. And the reason why I'm painting the windows first is because I can kind of be messy with them, like paint outside the squares. And then when I paint my house, I can like use the brown that I'm painting the house to kind of like sharpen up the edges. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And then if you want, sometimes I'll do like a hint of orange on some of the like edges of the windows because usually light illuminates things in a gradient. And so to have like a gradient of value or color within like a window or something like that just gives it a little extra hint of warmth. Like look at this window compared to this window.
Yeah, way warmer.
And then I'm not going to, well, maybe I'll do, no, I'm not going to do a window on the door because it's a door. Okay. Now, let's do the house. So I'm just using dark brown here. And I've got to be so careful around the windows.
It's funny when we talk about like house anatomy and the names of things. I just imagine my dad being so upset at me for not knowing because he's a contractor and I had to work with him my whole life. And I could just picture him being like, it's called this.
Yeah, we need to do like a building series and then just have your dad on the
Buildings with,
side to tell us the correct names of
uh-huh,
things.
uh-huh. And the California code for every part of it.
Yeah. Okay, look at this cute little cabin. And I'm just utilizing, there was a lot of paint on my brush when I initially laid it down. So I'm just pulling from that. And then you want to try and keep your windows an even width to each other. So you got to try and match that. And sometimes you get a wonk window and you just have to be okay with it. Like what house doesn't have a wonk window? You know what I'm saying? Especially if you have a house in Missouri.
Mm-hmm. There are no straight windows here.
Nope.
We tried to put closet doors on our daughter's room, and the whole house was so crooked. We had we had to have a professional come in and like straighten our closet.
Yeah.
It was a mess.
Okay. Oh, like my cute little cabin.
Cute.
Now, this is what's interesting, and I want to call it out to you guys. When the painting was mostly, or the paper was mostly white, when we did this wash of snow on the ground and on the roof, it was really apparent. Now that we've added a lot of dark values within this house, the wash that we did on the ground and the snow is like barely there. You can barely tell a difference between the white paper.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes you have to adjust your values as you go. If you did a wash where it was, dark enough that first time that you're just like, no, I don't think it needs it, then you don't have to do this part. But it's totally normal as you're painting to make adjustments as you go. Sometimes that first layer that you put down is not the value that you need. There's nothing wrong with going back to revisit it. So I'm just going to do that really quick. Okay. Do the same thing on the roof, but I'm going to be so careful. And it's also okay if you decide to do some like dry brush on the roof or something like that for a little bit of texture to show that like there's tiles or shingles or there's something on the roof, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and that feels good. Let's start doing the trees and then we will do the chimney and kind of finishing details, okay?
Okay.
So for the trees, I'm going to use green, but I'm going to mix my undersea green with like indigo, lamp black, basically any way to make it a really dark value green. So here is my undersea, and then I'm going to grab some indigo, and I'm just going to mix those together, just like that. And then using a liner brush, well, let me go get a better liner brush. Okay. Then using a liner brush, I'm going to grab that green and just start making trunks. Now I want to try and keep the lines pretty thin. So sometimes when you pick up a lot of paint, even with the liner brush, you get a thick line. So that's where I'll take my paper towel and kind of just wipe it on one side and then the other. It kind of squeezes the bristles together into a thin point, like so.
Mm-hmm.
And then that is what I will use to create my thin line. You
Mm.
see the difference there?
Yeah.
So sometimes it's not even like liners are helpful, but if there's too much moisture or paint on that liner, you'll still get a thick line. Okay, and then I'm just gonna do overlapping dashes like so. And let's add more indigo to this. You can also try and use a foliage brush. A lot of times what I'll do is I'll do like the bottom half of the tree when I have a lot of paint on my brush like this. And then I'll wipe my brush so I have a thinner amount. And then I'll finish the top with the delicate.
Mm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, smart.
And don't be afraid of switching up, having some taller trees, some shorter trees. Variation actually is super helpful with this composition. And if you like make a tree that you're like, oh no, that top is too thick, well then just make it taller. Just remember that overall we want a triangular shape. And don't forget to go all the way to the roof line, to the edge of the house, that kind of thing. Oh, try and keep your trunk straight. But sometimes you gotta tree that leans a bit.
Maybe it's a windy area, you know?
Yes. Actually, where were we? Oh, we were traveling. We were on the Azores and we went to this place that was right next to, was it a lake? Do you remember that church, honey, right next
Yeah.
to the lake?
Yeah.
And the wind was so strong off of that lake that all of the trees were growing this way.
Yeah.
All of
That
them.
was cool.
It was wild to see. So, yes, if you live in a very windy area, then all of your trees are going to be one direction if that wind is consistent.
Also, if you go to the Azores, San Miguel specifically, and go up towards Furnas and go see the church by the lake, it is stunning.
It is so beautiful.
Oh my gosh. That whole island blows my mind every time.
Okay. And I'm still treeing. Just tree. And you don't have to do these types of fir trees. You can do other trees if you want. And another little trick that you can do for your trees is you basically are like roughly putting them in. And that's what I mean. Like, we're not concerned too much about the thickness of the tree trunk. You know, we're kind of just doing placement. And then after you fill them in a bit, you can then be a little bit more detail oriented, you know, and work on the finer strokes, add another tree here or there. But sometimes you need to have something on your paper to respond to in order to know what it needs. And so that's why we just kind of roughly put things in and then decide, how does this look? Do we need to add anything? That kind of thing. Okay, that's looking good. What's throwing me off at this point is how white the door is. That's what's making it kind of tricky to see what's happening. So I'm just going to paint the door. I don't know if you're going to be able to tell a huge difference. You can change up the color if you want, but because I'm doing brown, I really don't think a colored, like a red door or anything would look good. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm. I was going to ask you about a red door, so I'm glad you brought it up.
And it's fine that it kind of blends in because that's kind of true to wood things anyway. Okay, now that I've filled everything in, this is where I'll focus on more of the details. Let's also paint that tiny little chimney since I have brown right here on my brush. You just want to try and get the browns to be kind of similar. And then now that I painted that chimney, you can either make your chimney wider to cover up for that white gap, or I'm going to go in with my tree and fill that in. There we go. Just like that. Okay.
I grew up with a wood stove and I miss it sometimes. There's a specific kind of heat.
I wish that we had a wood stove. I really like them. Okay, I'm going to kind of define the side of the house from the front of the house. You can either do that, but a really simple way to do that is to have one of the sides be a darker value and one of the sides be a lighter value. Okay, so to show that they're different like facets of this three-dimensional thing. And so I think I'll actually go for the right side to be darker. So you want to put in like a hard line. And then you would go with the darker value. You see that?
Hmm.
And now all of a sudden it looks more dimensional where before it was feeling flat, and that's because they were very similar values. For extra effort or for extra fun and detailing, you can put little window panes on the windows. And as long as your yellow is dry, you can do brown, I'm going to do indigo. Actually, maybe I should do like brown mixed with indigo so then it doesn't turn green.
Indigo for it.
Yeah. And I want these to be really thin, delicate.
Do you remember what those are called?
No, I can't. Can't remember.
They are Muntin
Muntin
or grills.
grills. That's better. Okay. And then I'm going to do a little blue on this edge here. So it's not bright white. It's okay that it's a lighter value. We just don't want it to be like, oh, you know? Okay. Okay, that feels good. Okay, now we get to do the fun little details that really tie everything together. So this was like building up the structure. And for me, what I think makes something feel homey or like a feeling or something like that is like the atmosphere or the mood that we can add to the painting. So stars, snow, smoke, all of that kind of stuff is really what brings a painting to life. So I'm going to take my bleed proof white. I'm going to cover up my painting next to it. And let's first flick some stars. I'm going to take a smaller brush because the size of your brush that you're picking up the bleed proof white with will determine how big your flicks are of white. Because if it's a larger brush, it's going to hold more moisture, it's going to hold more paint, and so you're going to get larger flicks. For smaller ones, I'm going to do a smaller brush, and then I always like to test it on my palette to get an indication of the size. And sometimes it's good to do that because you'll have water on your brush. That was like barely there, right? You didn't see that? So then I'm like, okay, I need more paint and water. And let's test that. That's better. And if it's currently snowing, then the snow would be in front of the house. And you might be like, I thought you were adding stars. I'm doing both. Yeah. And then if you want, you can do like intentionally larger, whether they're stars or flakes. The other thing that I like to do is kind of smooth out the line like this. And then here's where I'm going to go in and kind of create that curve. Yeah, that feels more like snow is kind of piling in a bit on that. Let's add this chimney smoke. And I think we should add a tiny little moon. What do you think?
I think that sounds excellent.
So I'm going to use a liner for my smoke here. Make sure it's clean. Take some bleed proof white. And then if you guys want to give it shape, then you would just kind of curve it. Like that. Oh, it's so cute. And then sometimes I'll go in with a little bit like a not as bright white and kind of thicken the line a little bit.
This is your yearly reminder to get your chimney cleaned.
Yes.
Chimney fires are very dangerous. That is all.
Okay, and then maybe there is a little layer of snow on the very top of the chimney. You can put that in. And for the moon, let's have it this way. What do you think? Right here?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to have it be so tiny that I'm not even going to get out
The tool.
the tool. Just a little crescent. And whenever you're painting a crescent, you want to paint a banana, not a C.
Okay.
Okay?
It's so cute.
Okay, it is so cute. Look at my cute little cabin house. It's so warm and cozy.
Let's go there.
Yeah. And then, of course, like this painting is yours. And so, again, any added elements like footprints leading up to the cabin, a big tree kind of right here that's a really dark value would be really beautiful. You can even try putting in a fence line, or you know what I mean? Like, this is just the base, and I want you guys to take this and run with it and play with it. But I hope that you can see how by looking at a scene and just saying, okay, how is the light affecting the values in this scene? And then if I were to basically turn that daylight to nighttime, how would that affect the values here? And then once you go through that and address all of the different aspects, then you can take any painting and turn it into a night scene. Okay?
All right.
Okay, thank you guys so much for painting with me. I'll list the supplies in the description.
Perfect.
And just use what you have, though. Thanks for being here. We'll see you guys next time. Bye.